when were we in the secret space program? And they sent me handlers to handle my people.
You know, Einstein would consider that, in and of itself, a form of insanity.
You're abusing the staff.
Am I?
I don't know, maybe. I'd like to think you are.
Why? Just because that's fun to think about?
I mean, we're paying them.
For abuse?
I don't know, maybe.
If not, then what are we paying them for?
Exactly. If, like, I mean...
Work?
God, no. Nothing gets done around here.
No. Surprisingly, a lot more has gotten done around here.
More gets done around here than you would think.
Yeah.
Last week, I was asleep the entire week.
There was still a lot that got done last week.
Yeah, it's just like, oh boy.
We recorded a total of 13 podcasts last week.
That's awful. Why did we do that?
You were part of 10 of them.
Why did we do that?
No, 12 of them. Because we have busy
Horrifying.
schedules. We have busy
Disgusting.
schedules.
We shouldn't do that anymore. I think we should just, maybe we should retire.
The only way to not do that is to have Stephen and Gabby show up here more frequently.
That's true. We kidnap Stephen and Gabby, and we hold them hostage in the lodge, and all they do is record History Unhinged. Are you writing it down? Are you writing down kidnap Stephen and Gabby?
Yes.
Okay, good. Speaking of kidnappings, all these scientists, man.
How many do you think are kidnaps?
Man, well, I mean, the Carl Grillmare one, that's definitely not. The guy was just shot. And all of the evidence points to it being a very mundane thing. So Carl Grillmare is not. Ning Lee also doesn't make much sense. Some people keep being like, they never found the guy who hit her car. And I'm like, that didn't come up in any of my research. That seems like maybe you're just adding things to the story that aren't there. Maybe that's true. Even still, like, yeah, it's a hit and run and the guy drove off. Like, that doesn't imply anything weird happened, and there's no explanation for why anybody would do that to her. Like, her work wasn't very well known at all. It was just being funded by the government. So yeah, Carl Grillmare, Ning Lee, I don't think are really all that questionable. The guy up in Boston, Jason Thomas, looks to me like that was probably just suicide. So that's 3 of 13. Who else? Nuno Loureiro, I think was his name. His seemed to be more connected to the Brown shooter, who actually had sort of had a manifesto and everything. So that one's probably not. So now we're down to 10 out of 14. Trying to remember, and this is the weird part, is I remember last time we talked about this, I was like, yeah, the Amy Eskridge one still strikes me as a little odd, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, Amy Eskridge definitely wasn't part of this. So that's 5 out of 14 that aren't.
Well, we'll spend most of the time talking about her after we run through the list,
but I would say, definitively, off the top of my head, that's at least 5 people out of just 14 who don't seem connected to one another. I haven't done a ton of deep dive into McCaslin yet, but his is looking like it could very well be something isolated.
Which one was McCaslin again?
The general who disappeared from New Mexico.
Right.
But that's the thing, is if there's anything weird going on, I would think it's probably that little New Mexico cluster. Monica Reza is also still very weird to me, but I feel like Monica Reza isn't necessarily weird unless the rest of them are weird. Like, if several other people have been abducted by black helicopters in the middle of the night, and then you see Monica Reza's case, it's like, that could be weird. Otherwise, you look at it and you're like, that's still weird, but not in a connected way.
Yeah.
The two things that struck me as weird about Monica's case was, first of all, how little information there was about the people she was with. And then how soon they got resources into the area and still failed to find her. Because, like, just when you break it down, there's no reason for her to have gone down that southern side of that ridge. None whatsoever. She knew she needed to be on the northern side of that ridge. It would have been very obvious the further down the ridge you got that you were not in the right spot. Why'd she keep going? Like, could have just turned around. And if she was hurt, then she couldn't have gotten that far anyway.
Mm.
And, like, she wasn't found along the creek, which if she made it all the way down is where she should have been. There were no signs of a struggle from mountain lions or anything like that.
Yep.
So her case just doesn't make a ton of sense.
Not really. In line of not making a ton of sense, to the primary topic of this episode, let's just go top down at first with Amy Eskridge. So what were your thoughts before you really started to dig into the research about Amy?
Going into it, I was looking at it as sort of a thing where, all right, all the people who are trying to say that this isn't connected to a conspiracy theory are not being completely honest about Amy's identity, about what she was capable of, what she was involved with. Like, no, she was never a doctor. She's never a PhD, but that doesn't mean she wasn't a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And so the guy from The Atlantic who said that she was as much a scientist as a subway preacher as a theologian, it's like, no, she was a scientist. She was a scientist. That was her job.
What were her credentials again?
She had bachelor's degrees in chemistry and biology, but according to her family, she also reached expert, like she had expertise in a whole bunch of other scientific fields too.
Mm-hmm.
Like genealogy, genetics, physics, computer science. It sounds like she was incredibly intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the sense that she probably was. The problem with incredibly intelligent people is that they're often not quite as stable as people closer to the normal distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Same goes for people on the other end of the spectrum. Just on the far right side, it tends to manifest in somewhat different ways than on the far left side of the curve.
When he says that, he means of a normal distribution curve. And the right side is usually the higher numerical values, and the left side is the lower numerical values.
Yeah. Although also there are differences between right and left-wing crime by incredibly intelligent individuals. So I think that's another interesting one right there.
That's a topic in and of itself.
Yeah. Just looking at actual political affiliation, it suggests that a political affiliation maps on with some aspects of brain chemistry.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
I know there were analyses in the last decade about how different personality traits align with different political beliefs, so that makes a lot of sense.
My political affiliation has a lot of testosterone and protein, and your political affiliation is filled with estrogen and soy in the brain.
Take that.
Make America healthy again, communists.
Take that, many muscles.
Muscular Christianity. Yeah, so
Swole Jesus
no,
doesn't exist.
going
He can't
into
save
this, I was kind of looking at it like, all right, the attempts to call this not a conspiracy are veering into brazen lies about a dead person, which is never a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
That leads me to think that maybe something is being hidden here. But and then as I looked more into it, I was like, man, there's no information about this woman. Like, very little online about who she was, what she did. And then regarding her death, it was basically nothing. It was just self-inflicted gunshot wound. Didn't say where, didn't say when, didn't say how. No specifics from the coroner's report. So I was like, okay, that seems a little odd too. But then as I started peeling back the layers, for anybody who doesn't know the full story here, Amy Eskridge was a scientist and the co-founder of an organization called the Institute for Exotic Sciences, which was headquartered in Huntsville. And the idea was basically that it was going to be a VC firm and think tank for scientists who wanted to work on emergent technologies. It's probably the best way to put it. So she had nuclear, she had material sciences, she had propulsion sciences, all these different groups of people who were supposed to be coming to work for the Institute. And then in 2020, she is talking about, disclosure and going live with some research and publishing and all this. And then she just kind of goes quiet for 2 years. At least that's how it seems. If she was tweeting in those 2 years, it's all been deleted. Her Twitter profile no longer exists. Her work profiles haven't posted since 2018 and 2019. Basically, yeah, 2020, she just kind of goes dark.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't seem to appear for, basically 2 whole years when she dies.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, but according to some people, she was communicating with other people during that time. Most of those people are not particularly reliable. The guy, Mark Sokol, that she did that discussion with, that we heavily based a lot of the video on, apparently he's been charged with like domestic violence restraining order stuff. Yeah, so he's not a great dude. Somebody did send me an email where they mentioned there was an interview with Amy where she had said something about him dosing her with LSD, which at the same time, it's like, I mean, maybe, but also you think the Freemasons were sending you boyfriends. So I'm not sure that we can trust your judgment on that. To be clear, I'm pretty sure the domestic violence charge was after she was dead. So it was against somebody else. But yeah, the deeper we got into it, the more I was like, okay, this is starting to sound less like somebody who's in danger and more like somebody who is not all there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what makes it weird about her specifically is that she clearly can stand there and speak about normal things and have a normal conversation in videos of her.
Yep.
She doesn't seem like she's not shifty-eyed. She's not like, I think when a lot of people think of people with mental illnesses like schizophrenia, for example, I think in a lot of our minds, the appearance they have is drug addicts. It's like meth heads, crackheads, where it's going to be shifty and twitchy and kind of like, constantly, hearing sounds that aren't there and stuff. And it's like, yes, it does sometimes look like that, but it often looks like that in people who also have drug issues and live on the streets.
Yep.
She did not have drug issues and live on the streets. She, from what I can tell, lived with her parents the last 2 years of her life. Last 3 years even. So I think what I'm curious about is I found only one person who claimed to know her who said she was mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot remember his name. It was on a blog. It was on Medium. It was a guy who said he knew her and a couple of other people. Obviously not enough evidence on its own, but said that she had struggled with mental illness for a long time. I would presume her parents knew about whatever mental illness she had. As for why her father has been so cryptic, that's the one I'm a little iffy about.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like if it had gotten to this point, and I'm her dad, and I know she had schizophrenia, and I know she killed herself, I feel like the kindest thing you can do for her memory at this point is come out and say she was suffering from schizophrenia and couldn't overcome it.
Yep.
Because otherwise you're giving space for rumors. So I'm curious as to why her father has had the response he has. Not to say he's had the wrong one, just it's not the one I would expect of somebody trying to shut down rumors. And it makes me wonder why. Because, again, he was involved with the Institute. He was a co-founder. There's videos of her giving talks on the history of anti-gravity technology with him in the room participating.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like he considered her to be insane. It doesn't seem like he considered the things she was working on to be insane.
Mm-hmm.
So with Amy's story, I don't think the question is, did she harm herself or not? She did. I think that's by far the most likely outcome is whatever happened to her, she did to herself.
Mm-hmm.
What I am interested in, and I said this in the video, is how much of what she was talking about was real. How much of what she was talking about was true. Does the government go grab people and say, hey, work on this thing. And then once it succeeds, say, sorry, we decided to go a different direction. And then bring it underground to work on it with some secretive group of scientists. I think that there's stuff in there that could very well be real. The problem is that it's surrounded by things like Dan Cooper, the time-traveling, katana-wielding super soldier who plays chess.
Mm-hmm. There's a really weird continuum of information in that, and there's a lot that is on the very extreme side of insane, and then there's some stuff that's somewhere in the middle, and it's hard to parse out where exactly
like
in the
chess.
middle it lands. Yeah, chess is hard to parse out.
Yeah.
It is so interesting to me, just on a brief tangent about chess, that the older I get, the more I understand that playing chess, at least at a professional level, has nothing to do with actually like using a lot of like forward thinking. It's more of just pattern recognition of, oh, they're using this move, so I use this move next. Like that's something that's really fascinating to me. I always thought it was like, oh, you have to think a million steps ahead. And like, in a sense you do, but it's more like if in a card game, somebody in a poker game, a king gets put down on the table. And it's like, okay, you suddenly now know that that's not in the deck. And you have to assume what everybody else has and what is going to come next. So there really are kind of like a limited set of things, especially in a professional level of chess, because like someone will make a move and you then have to anticipate, okay, what other moves are they going to make? Instead of the move being which piece are they going to move where, it's, oh, they just did, the only move I know is a Queen's Gambit, but like there's a million different moves. And it's like, okay, well, you just made this move, which means that this like 80% of other moves that you could have made right there and the branch of the tree that you would have followed after that, that's now gone. You're not going to do any of that because none of that's applicable to the board you just set up. So where from there are you going to go? And then it's just like this process of elimination of like the branches on a tree that you're capable of pursuing at that point. And it's really interesting because it's when I was younger and a kid, I just always assumed it was like blank slate every time. And it's just you had to kind of read the person and figure out individually each piece, individual spaces, where they're going to go and why they would. But then you learn as you get older that it's actually the strategy is already baked in. Like there's already a million different ways to play the game. It's just figuring out which strategies they're going to use that already exist.
I've never heard someone explain how chess is played for that long.
Especially by someone who doesn't play it.
I'm just sitting here listening and you're like, yeah, that's how you play chess, all right.
I mean, did you have that moment where you realized like, oh, there's a lot more, it's built out a lot more than I thought it was, essentially. Like when I was a kid, I just thought it was you play. And then as I got older, it's like, oh, there's already like written out rules of strategy and like lineages in
I think it was just all of that was explained to me very early on.
Yeah, no one did that for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, being me, you can imagine the kind of parents I had.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, it's chess is played by playing the move and then figuring out what move the next guy's going to do. That is correct.
Yes. It's just move and strategy had different meanings for me initially as they do now.
For example, the strategy of roofing the same girl every time she comes into the same bar and then asking her the same questions.
You know, Einstein would consider that in and of itself a form of insanity.
Yeah. I did like that at one point in the interview, she was like, yeah, if you get up to use the bathroom and you come back and your drink isn't finished, you should just go get a new drink instead of drinking that. And I'm like, yeah, it's common sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know who it reminded me of is the guy who does the Shadow Force meme on Reels and TikTok and all that?
I don't.
Oh boy. I'm going to have to fix that.
Okay. For somebody who makes a living on the internet, I don't know a lot about the internet. Go ahead and hit
pause. Hit pause on the episode for a moment.
Are there a lot of Shadow Force guys like you?
No, but there's a lot of people doing stolen valor. The way you can tell if someone's actually Shadow Force, see someone with a black beret like this, go up to him and pinch him on the arm. If they say ouch, they're not Shadow Force. Shadow Force would say, I like that. Do it harder. I like to feel like it's a bullet. If I'm getting shot, I don't care. I like pain. It's good. Do it again with like a bullet to shoot me in the foot or something. I'm crazy. I like when it hurts. Are there a lot of Shadow Force guys like? I graduated at the top of my Shadow Force class. I had 7 Japanese girlfriends, and all of a sudden, I get diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. And the first thing I asked my doctor is, can I still do spaghettis for them? He said, you're gonna have to limit the... You're gonna have to limit the garlic intake from... Because it can make you fart.
I want you to know how brave I think you are.
I agree.
Helping millions of people by opening up like this.
Nobody actually really wants to talk about stinky diarrhea.
You are.
This is my story, though. This is my irritable bowel story.
All right, I get the picture. Then we'll
You get the picture.
I get the picture. Also, I think the most impressive part about the entire thing is how well he and his team match the backgrounds and lighting of the individual podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
That is phenomenal work.
Oh, yeah. They do great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember why that felt relevant.
You were Amy, obviously.
Yeah.
Was it about the Dane Cooper guy?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Dan Cooper gives me Shadow Force vibes.
Yeah.
I was widowly in the Sequel Space Program, and they sent me handlers to handle my pee-pee. They sent me to Mars, where I found the space defense turning on and off switch. I switched it off.
Do we know if any relevant science?
Also, it does not escape me that fucking Dan Cooper and Duncan Cameron are similar names.
Remind me, Duncan Cameron, who that is?
The Gooner Chair of Montauk.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the Montauk Gooner
yes.
Chair.
How could I possibly forget? Do we know if any relevant scientific communicators or just people in general have reviewed that interview and made comments on it in terms of the legitimacy of any of the scientific claims?
I don't think so, because I haven't seen anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is that the scientific claims made in there are generally not in any coherent format. It's more like, well, obviously this way of doing it doesn't work, and we all know that, right, guys? Yeah, so that's kind of how it goes for most of the episode. There's only a couple of moments. One was the YCBO, whatever it was, which somebody explained that the whole monolayer and bilayer thing they were talking about does have some scientific value to it, but I didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently something in there had to do with, and it seemed like maybe her questions and her problem with it were not as well thought out as she may have thought. I'm trying to think what the other one was.
What was the YCBO again?
Some kind of, I don't know.
Something.
I think it has to do with anti-gravity
Okay.
or repulsion.
Yeah,
versus propulsion.
The whole focus on the anti-gravity thing is such an interesting one to me because the general...
It was refreshing.
It was fun. It was cool. But to my understanding, the general scientific consensus on just gravity alone is it's borderline magic. We have concepts of an understanding of how gravity works. It's correlated to the mass of an object.
Yeah.
Other than that, no idea.
It seems like what they were working on wasn't necessarily anti-gravity so much as it was electromagnetic repulsion or propulsion.
Mm-hmm.
The only way I can imagine electromagnetic propulsion working beyond it, propulsion, would be a railgun. What are you going to do? Shoot spacecraft out of a giant railgun?
That, I think also the idea being that if you can utilize the Earth's magnetic field against itself to then essentially lower the apparent weight of an object,
Yeah.
even if it's only by 50%, it reduces the necessary fuel required to then make that object fly. Or if you're reducing the net effect of gravity via magnetic repulsion by 100%, then you have something that can essentially levitate in the air above Earth, and then you just need rough propulsion to move it one place or the other. So I can see the practical application for it, but everything I've ever heard about that is the Earth's magnetic field is nowhere near strong enough to be able to provide the opportunity to do something like that with an object of any significant mass.
That sounds correct. Sounds correct to me. I wouldn't know.
That's just what I'm aware of.
She did at one point in the interview say that the term anti-gravity is generally misunderstood. So I'm guessing that what she meant by that is that they're not working on ways to invert the physical process that is gravity, but more on ways to negate it.
This is a problem in the scientific
Which,
community.
if you look at, for example, the speeders in Star Wars, I think that's something anti-gravity technology, quote unquote anti-gravity, could be useful for, because if you have a frictionless car that speeds along the ground, basically because you've got, I don't know, maybe like some sort of metallic alloy in the asphalt that repels whatever is in the base of the speeder. I'm not sure how you would slow it down.
You'd need some serious air brakes, probably giant fins that pop out, or because a parachute would be really impractical, so you'd have to stuff it back every time you hit the brakes.
Yeah, it just wouldn't work very well.
Yeah, you would need massive air brakes, so kind of big airfoils that are stowed when you're moving forward and then pop out when you're braking.
Yeah. So
Or just something that slams into the ground, but that
I feel like that would also have problems to it.
Yeah. Maybe a combo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's a weird problem.
Stick your foot out.
Yeah, right. There's a weird problem in the scientific community that a couple of actual scientific communicators have discussed in the past. One of them being Angela Collier. Collier. I don't know how you exactly pronounce your name, but she's a great physicist and science communicator, and she has a good video on dark matter.
Okay.
And just about the fact that scientists are really bad at naming things. When you hear the scientific term dark matter, have you heard that before?
Yes.
What comes to mind?
Floating globules of dark materials.
Or
Maybe they're a little slimy.
Yeah, have you heard of anything about how dark matter interacts with anything else in the universe?
Violently.
Yes, actually. So that's the thing. So the general understanding is that when dark matter, there's a weird corollary and everything like that with dark matter, antimatter. There's different nomenclature for a variety of different things, and now I'm kind of starting to get myself confused here because there's a variety of different things, but essentially, so a prime example of science being bad at naming things
Okay.
is
Prime numbers.
antimatter.
Okay.
Are you familiar with antimatter?
All right. Well, I was not aware this was a different thing from dark matter, to be honest with you.
And that's the thing is I'm not even totally certain, but I do know that this is a better comparison directly off the bat.
Okay.
And this is the problem is from the non-scientific community, I'm also not totally certain that antimatter and dark matter are two different things, but let's use antimatter for the sake of the conversation.
Okay.
When you hear the term antimatter, what do you envision? What are you aware of about that?
It does not get along with matter.
Correct. Any idea why?
The soft bigotry of low expectations.
Good enough a guess as any. The interesting thing about antimatter is, if I'm getting this correctly, it's literally just at a subatomic level, the particles within it have a different charge.
So the positives are negative and the negatives are positive?
Pretty much, yeah. And so when you put matter and antimatter together, you get a reaction, which is why it's very explosive. But the thing is that it's not as if in the universe there is a bunch of matter that is the inverse. There's not a bunch of antimatter that's essentially you can have an antimatter universe per se, or that it's going to annihilate all of our universe. There is an explosive reaction, but it's not because it's some ethereal other universal other what's the term for that? It's not this like weird other universal, other dimensional thing. It's just essentially matter with different charges at the subatomic level that then, just as anything at, in normal matter with different charges, is going to react. But there's a lot of confusion in non-scientific communities because antimatter sounds really scary and like something that is from like a different dimension. Whereas in real scientific circles, they have an understanding that antimatter literally just has to do with the charge of the particles.
Okay.
This is a problem throughout a wide variety of elements within science, where they've given names to things that sound cool, but are actually really bad at describing what the thing is.
So what's dark matter?
I'm gonna find that out. We're gonna do a little bit of live fact checking just for the sake of it.
Google does not know.
It does. So the key thing is that antimatter is what I just described. It is regular matter with its electric charge flipped, and it blows up when it touches normal matter. Dark matter is a hidden, invisible type of mass that pulls galaxies together with gravity, but we do not know what it is made of yet. So it's just called dark matter because it's a form of matter that has a gravitational footprint, but we just haven't located the source yet. So it's literally like saying the end of this equation that has been unsolved is a dark number because we don't know what the number is yet. Which, again, in terms of scientific communication, not the clearest for the general public.
They could get better at it.
They could get better at it. And
Remember how I said that every scientific project needs an annoying philosophy student attached to it to tell them when to stop?
Yes.
I think they also need an annoying marketing student
Yes.
attached to them to tell them how to describe things.
Well, this is also part of how we get so many conspiracies, because someone might hear the term dark matter and think that it is like an actual like physical description of a type of matter that like consumes normal matter and can destroy the universe if it's left unchecked.
I see.
Or antimatter, it might be something where they think if, you can create something out of antimatter that will then be anti-gravitational, because if it's matter and antimatter, then obviously they would repel each other, things like that. And it's like, that's not how it works. That isn't scientifically accurate. But the problem is that I can see how you got there by not doing the research, but understanding a little bit about what these things are, primarily based on the nomenclature. And I think a lot of weird conspiracies that we have now, and a lot of people sometimes in positions like Amy, I'm not going to say this was exactly what Amy was doing, but having a fundamental understanding of certain topics, assuming they have a greater intelligence level overall, and then applying what they think is their instinctual understanding of topics as a whole to topics they really don't know a lot about.
Yeah.
And then creating theories based off of that. And I think there's an unfortunate amount of that going on. I think, who was the guy who was on Rogan not long ago? The
Terrence
one actor?
Howard?
Yeah. Terrence Howard is a prime example of this. I think he has some understandings of concepts that are accurate, but then he assumes more than he actually knows. And then he will take what little information he has about other topics and create a theory based off of his understanding of those things, even if it's not accurate.
Got it.
I feel like there's a lot of that going on.
Who's that Billy something guy? It's a black dude named Billy. Billy Carson is who I think I'm talking about. Yeah, Billy Carson. Yeah. Got books like The Epic of Humanity, Woke Doesn't Mean Broke, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, Manifestation Codes.
I do think that
Mysteries of the Forbidden Emerald Tablets of Thoth.
that makes me think also like another prime example of this is almost everything on Ancient Aliens and some of the stuff that, what's his name? Glasses, thinning hair, Egypt, Göbekli Tepe.
Graham Hancock?
Yeah,
Okay.
some of his stuff as well, I think falls into this category.
Yeah. Graham's, I think, does have I don't know if it's necessarily more accurate, but it does have a higher degree of authenticity to it.
It does. I don't think he's trying to deliberately mislead people. I think he just makes more leaps than he can justify.
Yeah. And I think that I think it's hard with people who believe in that kind of stuff, because what Hancock gets at with his criticism of archaeology and science is, I think, something that's kind of tangentially related to what we're talking about with Amy Eskridge, where he knows enough that his theories don't come across as nonsense. But the people who try to debunk him, while they know more than him about the topic, they are worse at communicating it. And so rather than sitting down and going piece by piece through all of his arguments and saying, and here's how this is wrong, and here's how this is wrong, and here's how this is wrong, they'll kind of just hit it with a blanket conspiracy theorist label. Which the problem is, the more frequently you apply that to things, the less frequently it's going to be an appropriate label. And the more frequently the conspiracy theories are going to turn out to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have people who are like, well, if the conspiracy theorists are always right, why would they be wrong about this? And then you have ridiculous conspiracy theories that start to get accepted because of the other ones that are true. Another thing is that intelligent people who do get fooled into a conspiracy theory don't tend to realize that they were fooled into a conspiracy theory, because they have a sense that they're too smart to get fooled into a conspiracy theory. So the fact that they're in the conspiracy theory, means it must be correct. And then once you think you're correct about the one conspiracy theory, who God knows how many others that you're going to get into. But when you just look at Graham Hancock and you have this blanket like, oh, he's just a conspiracy theorist who has no idea what he's talking about thing, and then you're like, okay, well, he was the only one that I heard talking about Göbekli Tepe not matching up with the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Flint Dibble on. He's like, well, no, we've been talking about it for 30 years, but nobody's really paying attention to what we say. And it's like, okay, why? Oh, it's because what you're saying is not nearly as interesting as what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, it's a little impossible to make real archaeology as interesting as what Graham Hancock is saying. But
at least on a consistent basis.
You could at least try. You could at least make sure that you've got people who are good debaters who are entertaining to go up against him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very telling that every time these guys get beaten, not Graham, I've never had an interaction with him, but guys like, God, what's his name? The Atlantis is the Eye of the Sahara guy. Also name starts with a B. I can't remember his Bright Insight, whoever that guy. Jimmy Corsetti. Guys like him, anytime you poke holes in their theory, they just block you. They just keep on talking. And, the whole idea is like, if I spout off enough nonsense, I get paid to spout off nonsense. The guys getting paid to do archaeology don't have time to counter all of my nonsense. I'm just going to keep on doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately for guys like Jimmy Corsetti, I do get paid to spout off nonsense. And so I do have the time to correct theirs.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of what I do for a living. And David Paulides is not happy about this.
So that was the next step I was going to go is...
What? How he tried to bring up Amy Eskridge and all of them in the Y-Files episode?
Not quite there yet. I was going to say more that he's kind of the inverse of Graham Hancock, who I think if Graham is altruistically intended...
Yeah.
I think Dave is probably the inverse. I don't know that for certain, but based on his behavior, it seems that way.
I think Graham's also a hell of a lot smarter than David.
Fair.
Like, that is... The reason I question whether or not Graham Hancock is deliberately misleading people is because of his intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I wonder how somebody could know as much as they do and still say that.
What's an example, if you have one?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. Like, for example, his thing about the Mesoamerican mythology and there being a race of people who came over from across the sea and interacted. I can't remember the details of the story now. If you go back and watch our video on it, I go through it in detail. But basically,
Is this
he
the
gives
Vinland Saga stuff?
No. This is I think the first or second Ancient Apocalypse episode we did.
Okay.
I think the first one, yeah, because the second one was basically all Giants of Malta. But yeah, he'll look at something like these Mesoamerican stories and be like, well, doesn't this story sound similar to all of these other stories? Which, like, yeah, when you sit down and you look at it, you're like, okay, wow, all of these different groups have very similar stories.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there was a shared event. That is the thought process as a historian or archaeologist and anthropologist, is you go, okay, all of these different groups from this one area have flood stories.
Mm-hmm.
Are they the same flood story? If no, okay, this region floods a lot. If yes, interesting. This region floods a lot. Why that one?
Mm-hmm.
Then you go look at it and you're like, okay, well, in this culture, this story goes back to a time when they weren't yet living in cities. In this culture, this flood goes back to a time when they were. We found evidence of a flood during this period, and then now we have this other civilization that kind of lives outside the floodplain area, but we know that they were recording things around this year, and in this year they recorded this thing that happened. Okay, now we know when the flood was, and that also tells us when this group of people started living in cities and how long this group of people had been living in cities, at least. So like you follow those through lines as more and more evidence appears, and you kind of file all of it, and you think about, okay, how does all of this different stuff correlate to one another? Point is, that's a legitimate thing to say when you say, look at this story. This story is so similar to all of these other stories from this same part of the world. Valid. The problem is that the way Graham Hancock told the story was wrong.
That's not a great starting point.
So it's like, if you look at the story he tells, very compelling. Does he know it's not the right story? Because the version he's using appears to predate the decryption of the Mayan language. So a lot of the stuff in Graham Hancock's first books, if you read them, it's not that he was wrong. He was wrong. It's not that he was giving information contradictory to the academic narrative. It was that there was no academic narrative.
Yeah, the information didn't exist yet.
Or the academic narrative was still in such an infant stage that a guy working in journalism couldn't get his hands on any of it. Which happens. There's new emergent theories coming out all the time. We know so much about Neanderthals right now that we did not know 20 years ago. Like, I remember, and this is something that probably the younger viewers of the show won't remember, but the ones our age and up, like, you guys probably remember when there were shows on Discovery Channel or History Channel or whatever, National Geographic, where it was still like the mystery of the Neanderthals.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're sitting here like we've sequenced their entire genome.
Yep.
We're learning all there is to know.
Yeah, we're kind of running out of mysteries other than like the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, at this point we are with like Denisovans where we were with Neanderthals 20 years ago, and that's fast.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people appreciate the speed at which a lot of the hard sciences have really picked up. Tectonic plate theory was 1917. The electromagnetic field surrounding the Earth, that's like 50s that they really nail that one down. There's all sorts of things we know about physics that we have really only known for a century or less. Medicine is really only ahead of the curve by about 100 years.
Yeah.
In terms of like when we discovered the things we use now. I think of it, we had people painting radium onto watches and using their mouths to point the tips of the brushes. Like the number of things we know about things that hurt us and things we came from and things we can do and how the planet works that is different from 100 years ago is insane. So that's when I look at something like Amy Eskridge saying she had a anti-gravity discovery that she wanted to announce, I'm sitting there like, okay.
Yeah, it's possible.
I know Ning Lee was working on something in the 90s. So if Ning Lee's got something in the 90s and Amy Eskridge comes out, her dad's a NASA physicist, she's got this other nuclear physicist working with her, like she's got credentials, she's in Rocket City, USA. Like if there's anywhere I'm going to expect that to come out of, and in a world where now, you've got Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and whatever his name is, Branson, like all these billionaires who are starting to play around with it. It's like, okay, I could see how maybe some billionaire somewhere grabbed a pet scientist and to put some stuff together. It's not like that's never happened before. Really, the latter half of the 20th century is the only time in history that hasn't been the primary method of doing science. It would not surprise me if billionaires who wanted to, get the jump on the next big technology were like, hey, come work for me. I'll give you a blank check to study anti-gravity, to study chimpanzee brains, to study flying cars, Realistically, if you're a, mega billionaire like these guys and you're not funding all kinds of silly research, I don't think you're doing richness right. Like, if I was a multi-billionaire, I would be out there like, hey, the best way to find Bigfoot is to have Bigfoot find you. I need you to make me a Bigfoot to draw out the other big feet. I'm going to be doing stuff like that. Okay? Like, genetically modified Bigfoot, light work.
Little reaction.
Yeah, but no, I mean, that's just what I'm doing on a random Tuesday. Big project, there is no ice wall. Yet. We're going to build one.
At this point, why don't we?
Yeah. And then Canada's going to pay for it. But yeah, to get back to the serious point, I don't look at somebody saying, I have figured out anti-gravity and go, well, you're crazy. No, I look at somebody who goes, I have figured out anti-gravity, and also the P-52s and the P-47s have come back to thank me for creating the 3D MedPod over email.
The one thing that will take me out of any scientific discovery is time travel in reverse.
Yeah.
I am not a physicist, but every level of my understanding of time says that is not possible because time isn't a force, it's not an element, it's a measurement of the universe happening that we made up.
Yep.
And it is based on the forward progression of events happening in the universe.
I would argue that, like, in literature, the second time travel is introduced, a sci-fi story becomes a fantasy story.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Because our perception is based on electrochemical occurrences happening within inside our synapses and the neurons of our brains.
Yeah.
And the only reason time travel in the extension is possible is because within the bounds of the limits of the speed of light, as you approach the speed of light, that is an ultimate speed limit for information in the universe. So as you get closer and closer to it, the light speed things happening inside of your brain, in order to compensate for the fact that you are moving in a vector towards the speed of light, that must slow, because it's not possible to have two things at the same time going in two different vectors near the speed of light within the same body.
So you're telling me if I go the speed of light, I'm getting scrambled?
No, if you go, let's say 99.99% the speed of light, your neurons and neurochemicals within your brain will necessarily slow down to the point where seconds become years for you.
Okay.
But as a result, everything else is still moving. This is where relativity comes in. This is the basis of all of Interstellar, essentially. It's like, as your internal processes slow down, by necessity of the fact that your body itself is moving 99% the speed of light or somewhere relatively close to it, everything else around you is still moving at the speed it was before you accelerated to the point that you're at.
Sure.
So people on Earth, their neurochemical processes have not needed to slow down as a result of their movement.
Okay.
So they are existing on a normal time scale for humans on Earth. But because your body processes are slowing down, time extends for you. Because it takes the neurons in your brain longer to go from point A to point B in your brain. Because they can't travel at light speed if your body is moving at almost light speed in a different direction. Does that make sense?
Sure.
It's essentially like saying you can't make progress throwing a baseball in a bullet train.
Okay.
In the sense that if you throw a baseball backwards
Yeah.
as a train's going forward, the ball's still moving forward,
Sure.
but now you've slowed it down.
Yes.
And speed in the universe is on a vectoral basis.
Okay.
So anything.
So my brain is the baseball.
Exactly. The neurons, the electronic signals in the neural pathways and the chemicals moving within your brain are the baseball.
I think this might be more math than my brain can handle.
That's fair. But the point being is that, like, based on all understandings of how physical bodies work and how information travels in the universe,
not be able to fly.
Correct.
Yes.
But also, like, reversal of time is not possible because everything progresses forward.
Yes.
You can't undo a cut on your arm.
Right.
You can't make someone undo that. We can do that in our imagination, which is really cool. It's interesting that
You can't undo a cut in your arm sounds very 2007.
That's fair.
That is a 2007 metalcore lyric right there.
But, like, and that's the thing is, like, as soon as time travel starts coming into the equation for anything for me, it's like you are dipping into fantasy to the levels that you don't understand the science you're talking about.
Yes.
And, like,
honestly, the fact that that's not the thing that takes you out of the Montauk Project story the most is impressive.
yeah,
Like, the fact that it's not the time travel, it's the gooning.
it's the gooning chair.
Like, that one did a number on my psyche.
Reasonably so.
Yeah. Like, how do you even come up with that, man?
Unshakable levels of mental illness.
Yeah, Preston Nichols made, like, oh boy, that guy was crazy. Got legitimately nuts. Amy, on the other hand, I think just needed medicine.
Yeah, it does.
If Amy had been on lithium, she'd probably still be with us.
It does seem like she was a vulnerable individual being taken advantage of by the people around her.
That's the worst part, and it's why I, towards the end of the video, did kind of lay into him a little bit. Basically be like, hey, you guys in search of validation or fun or getting laid or whatever, you guys created this problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you guys like supported her delusions and made her think that all of this was real. Like, nobody in her life thought to sit there and go, hey, Amy, how many silver Lexuses do you think are in the city of Huntsville, Alabama? Do you really think you know every dealership in the city? Even the ones that aren't Lexus dealers that might just have a used one on the lot? Like, nobody thought to do that? Nobody thought to, like, the fact that they're sitting there in the conversation in the recording and she's like, you know, isn't it so weird that my family moved out to this town in Alabama and then 25 years later, the guy whose parents we live next to comes to work for my company? And she's like, isn't that so weird? And you're like, no, actually, it's not. It's called a coincidence. Happens all the time. Also, your dad works for NASA. He's going to know other people who work for NASA. Like, it could very well be that, you know, he heard about that community through Bill Dent, moved out there, ended up living next to Bill Dent's parents, and then 25 years later, Bill Dent's like, I'm a retirement age scientist. What's something fun I could do? Oh, I'll go work for Eskridge's daughter. She's got that new thing going on. Like, and part of the reason I think that, like, not being a psychiatrist at all, part of the reason I point towards paranoid schizophrenia is the paranoia. Like, the obvious paranoia of woke up in the morning. Last night, I asked my boyfriend if he could close the window. The window was open. He must have just pretended to close the window last night. That bastard lied to me. Real, like, almost perfectly quoted series of phrases, by the way. Does not occur to her that maybe her boyfriend opened the window back up in the morning when he left for work. No, I called my boyfriend to ask. Just, he lied to me. Not a rational thing to think. Maybe if you got up early, you're groggy, you're just like scrambling to get your coffee and whatever and get to work, and you're like, oh, man, he must have lied about opening the window. Later that day, you're going to be like, why did I think he lied about opening the window? He probably just opened it in the morning.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, stuff like, being convinced that this silver Lexus is following everywhere, and nobody, maybe Jeremy Reese obviously didn't ask anything, but like Sokol doesn't think to ask, well, was it the same model and make every time? Like, that's what drives me nuts about the conversation, the recording, is it's just like...
Doesn't she also at one point say, like, they kept swapping license plates on it as well?
Yeah. Like, as the interview goes on, there's so many points where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I would have asked so many clarifying questions about everything you have said here. Because everything is just said and accepted. And I'm like, that's not better than accepting nothing. Accepting everything is not better than accepting nothing.
Yep.
And yet here we are, just accepting everything that's said. The Freemasons are sending me boyfriends. Sure, okay. Yeah, that sounds real.
Yeah.
Every single one of my boyfriends for the last however many years I've been getting boyfriends that are actually handlers. Oh, for how long? When do you think this first started?
Mm-hmm.
All of the relationships last exactly 6 months? Or are we talking like some are 5 months, some are 7 months? Like, is there variability to that? Like, just drilling down into some of the stuff she was saying in order to find the points where she's going to break the delusion herself.
Yeah. Well, that's A, part of what therapy would be useful for, but also B, it is kind of the theme of everything we've talked about throughout this episode so far, is the lack of rigorous detail analysis is generally what leads to conspiracy theories, even about your own life.
Yeah. I mean, there have been times where I'm doing a video and I form like a conspiracy theory in my head as I'm researching it, and then eventually I get to a point where I'm like, oh, no, that answers the questions. All right, no conspiracy there. Time to move along. Whereas I think what a lot of conspiracy theorist people do, even the ones who do style themselves as researchers, is, like I said, I'll be researching a story, it's unsolved, I think I noticed something. A way a few details connect, and I'm like, oh, maybe it was the uncle. The uncle was in the right place at the right time. He had the motive to do something. He had the means because he has a, pickup truck with a like shell bed over it. Like, okay, if somebody were to, kill somebody and then go hide the body, it's probably going to be a family member or a close friend. And this guy checks all the boxes, and there's no explanation for like why it wasn't him. It doesn't seem like anybody really investigated it. And then I get, 20 pages deeper into it, and I've still got that in the back of my mind. And it's like, the uncle was deployed in Afghanistan at the time, and he only got back like 2 days after the crime. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, it wasn't the uncle. I think what a lot of conspiracy theorists will do is they'll get there to that point where they're like, okay, well, all of these pieces of evidence would indicate the uncle did it. I'm going to prove the uncle did it. And then they stop. Yep. And they're just like, all right, what else can I learn about the uncle? Oh, he was in the army? Oh, that means he's got he knows how to do this. Oh, wow. He grew up in this same town, and he had some problems with the victim back in the day. Okay, well, that definitely looks like it. Just, tacking thing on and on and on until eventually they built such a strong case that they think nothing could break it because they've tricked themselves into believing, any assumption that goes their direction must be true. Any little piece of evidence that might be a problem, like, this guy was, his phone calls were showing up as long distance on the night that it was happening. Okay, well, that's not a big deal. That could have been anything. Like, maybe there's another explanation. They'll accept maybe there's another explanation for anything that goes against their theory, but anything that does confirm it, they just go along with it until eventually they have built such a strong case in their head that the uncle was the murderer here, that even telling them he was definitively in Afghanistan, like, on mission, here's all the reports, here's the eyewitnesses, he definitely was in Afghanistan, and he only got home like the morning of the murder, like after the body had already been discovered. Even giving them all of that is not enough.
Yep.
Because they're like, yeah, but here's all this other stuff. And they've already built themselves up to a point with that other theory that, like, they've basically forgotten there were road bumps along the way where they were like, well, that doesn't quite fit, but we'll figure it out later. You know, there's got to be some way it fits in. And so I think that's what happens with a lot of conspiracy theorists is they get to that point where you start to wonder if it's the uncle. And from that point on, well, everybody else said it wasn't. How can I be the one who proves it was?
Yeah, and that's the downside, is that it's a very human thing to not want to admit to yourself that you've wasted days, weeks, months, sometimes years on a theory that, with even just the smallest amount of evidence, is proven so definitively wrong. So, like, it's understandable that you might not want to let that go, but that is where the professionalism comes in.
Yep.
If you want to consider yourself a professional in any field that requires this level of research and analysis, you have to be able, willing, and ready to, when you find evidence that is actionable that disproves your entire theory, again, approach it with the same level of rigor that you did every other element of the research that you did, but you have to be willing to accept that you were wrong and move forward and then start down another path.
This is a channel that got started under the belief that the National Park Service was indeed hiding strange disappearances in the national parks and that these could be the work of the Wendigo.
And now...
Oh, I still believe that.